My question is for the Minister for Housing and Homelessness. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering for people most in need of housing in Australia, and what are the risks of delaying the passage of the Housing Australia Future Fund bill through the Parliament?
Give the call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Small Business.
Thanks, Mr Speaker, and I want to thank the member for Canberra for her important question, because I know that she, like I'm sure everyone in this place, finds it unacceptable that nearly 123,000 Australians were homeless on census night in 2021. I say each of those Australians has a story to tell, and each story is one that all of us should be listening to. Over 80% of the increase in people who are homeless were women. And I want to remind members in this place and the other place that that's why, in its first 5 years, returns from the Housing Australia Future Fund will deliver 4,000 homes for women and children impacted by family and domestic violence or older women at risk of homelessness, as well as, of course, $100 million for crisis and transitional housing options for these people. Sadly, the data also showed that Indigenous Australians are over 9 times more likely to experience homelessness. 9 times. That's why returns from our Housing Australia Future Fund will provide $200 million for repairs, maintenance and improvements for housing in remote Indigenous communities. And of course, as the Veterans Minister said yesterday, in the census there was a new question to gauge the number of veterans and serving members of the Australian Defence Force who are homeless. And that answer is not one that is funny or that we should be proud of.
Order.
On census night, 1,555 veterans were homeless. Again, that's why returns from the Housing Australia Future Fund will provide $30 million to build housing and fund specialist services for veterans who are experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness. And of course, as I said yesterday, of the 123,000 people, 23% were young people aged 12 to 24. The data shows we all need to work together to do better. That's why, at the last election, we did put to the Australian people a plan to tackle the country's housing challenges. Fundamental to our plan is, of course, increasing supply of new housing, and we are already delivering. Homes are underway already today across the country from our housing infrastructure facility broadening. And of course, in our first budget, the National Housing Accord. We've already stood up the Interim National Housing Supply and Affordability Council. And of course, work has begun on a National Housing and Homelessness Plan. We want the National Accord, the National Housing and Homelessness Plan, and of course the Housing Australia Future Fund working together on independent advice from the Supply and Affordability Council, helping everybody work together and, of course, lifting the states and territories and putting pressure on them too to do more. Our $10 billion Housing Australia Future Fund will be the largest boost to social and affordable housing in more than a decade. Our fund will help deliver more homes, and I urge people in this place to support it, because Australians that need it most need it.